Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the best baits for July bass fishing here. We're going to be doing mostly offshore baits. That's what I really like to fish this time of year. July, no matter where you're at, if you're in the south, it's going to be very warm. Those fish live offshore. There will always be fish shallow, but the majority of your fish are going to be offshore this time of year, and you're going to catch them out that way. Even up here in the northeast, our fish are done spawning. They're post-spawn, moving their way out offshore as well. And a lot of the fish that I catch this time of year, even up here in the northeast, are offshore. And by offshore, I don't mean deep. I'll catch fish in 6 to 10 foot of water, but it's spots that are hundreds of yards off the bank, and that's where those fish want to be this time of year. It's just a little bit deeper, the water's a little bit cooler, and mostly they're going to have to eat a lot this time of year to keep their metabolism going. Their metabolism is very high. The water temperature is probably the hottest it'll get besides August, maybe September, depending on some places. So those fish are going to have to eat a lot the next couple months here to really survive. So I almost entirely forego those shallow fish unless you get out there really, really early in the morning and can catch them on some like topwater baits, covering some water up shallow that way, or you really want to finesse fish for them and just like throw a Senko all day. You will catch fish doing that. There's a couple other techniques that will be coming up on the channel here in the short couple of weeks here that will highlight some shallow fishing, but we're also going to talk a lot about the offshore game the next couple weeks as well. So stay tuned. Let's get right into it. And let's break down these lures for July bass fishing. So before we get into these July bass fishing baits, a couple things I needed to mention. One, you probably noticed that I've gone down to 1 video a week as of recently. That's not permanent. As of now, I fished back-to-back Bass Nation Regional Championship, Toyota Series. I'm going to ICAST next week. I had a couple other local tournaments mixed in there. June just happened to be my busiest month that I've ever had between the channel and fishing. And on top of all that, I had to work my regular job, and I also had videos planned that I was going to film before I left. And we had a weird spring up here in the northeast, and those videos didn't go as planned. I didn't get to catch the fish that I thought I was going to, and those videos didn't turn out like I thought they would. So I had to drop it down to 1 video a week to get through that period. I figured 1 video would keep you guys engaged and not me just disappear off the face of the earth for a month. That should be ending here in like 2, maybe 3 weeks. It depends on how the next couple weeks go. Like I said, I'm leaving for ICAST here, so I'm going to be out the next 2 weekends. Then I'm not going to be able to film, but then we'll be back in action, and all we got is fishing on the agenda after that. So there'll be a lot of videos coming once we get through this next little stretch here, and we got a ton of stuff planned. If there's anything you'd like to see, July, August, September type fishing that's coming up, something you might struggle with, something you might want to see a video on, leave a comment down below and we can turn that into a video once we get back out on the water here. The other thing I needed to mention real fast, my boat will be going for sale this year in the next couple weeks. It'll be getting posted to the public. If there are any of you guys that are interested in purchasing my boat, I have that Z520R. I've had it for about 1.5 years now. It's time to get a new one. If there are any of you that would like to purchase the boat that I've been running the past couple years, there is my email down below if you'd like to reach out there, or you can go over to my Instagram and send me a message on there. However you want to reach out to me, if you're seriously interested in purchasing it, or you know somebody that might be seriously interested or looking for a boat like that, send them my way. But if I don't hear anything from you guys or get a seller through YouTube here in the next couple weeks or so, I will be posting it to the public for sale, and we'll see if we can move it that way. So that boat will be moving on. We'll be running a new boat here for 2024. But let's get into the baits for today, starting with my favorite one. This is going to be the only search bait I have in the agenda here today. While these fish are very willing to feed this time of year and they want a lot of food, crankbaits, they've seen a million of them. They've seen a lot of that offshore stuff that they've been doing, because a lot of these fish are still on the same places they've been on since June, even May in some places. So since those fish have been there for so long, they've seen a lot of baits. So one little bait that I like to throw, it's still search bait, but it's a little more finesse. You guys know I love a swim bait, especially for smallmouth. Finesse swim bait fishing. I throw those 3.2 Divine swim baits on a Pulse Fish Lures jig head. That's usually my go-to. Small on a spinning rod. I'm going to upsize that basic premise there. I'm going to go to the Divine swim bait head here with the screw lock. This is a 5/0 hook in here. It's super thick wire. This is a 3/8 ounce. I'll throw anything from 1/4 up to 3/4. Depends on how deep of water you're fishing in. Like I said, some of my offshore spots, they're 6 foot of water. I'm gonna throw a quarter or 3/8. But when you get on those TVA lakes, you're fishing 20, 25, even 30 foot of water. You might need that 3/4 to get all the way down there to the bottom, especially with that current rolling through there. So they make these in a variety of different sizes. And then the bait I'm gonna throw on here is the 6 cents whale. This is the 4.5. Biggest swim bait they make. I'm gonna slap that thing on there. It looks great. It matches up perfect. It's gonna have that head wobble and tail kick. It's gonna put off a lot of vibration. I'm gonna fish this on a bait caster, 7'3", medium heavy, 15 to 17 pound test fluorocarbon line. And I'm gonna bomb this thing out there on those offshore spots and just slow roll it like you would a finesse swim bait, keeping it on the bottom at all times. It is just an upsized profile to get more largemouth bites. I fish a lot more largemouth this time of year, and on those offshore places, it's just a bigger profile to catch those bigger bass, especially when they're looking for a bigger meal. Doesn't mean a smallmouth will not eat this. I have caught smallmouth up in our rivers up here on this exact same setup right here, the 4.5 whale and a 3/8 ounce divine swim bait head on a bait caster. Smallmouth will eat this too, especially in the summer when they're really looking for a big meal. So now let's jump into the 2 bottom bouncing baits. They're gonna be the bread and butter right now and get you a lot more bites. So the first one here, like I said, those bottom bouncing baits are gonna get you more bites because they've seen all that stuff. They've seen the hair jigs, they've seen the flutter spoons, they've seen all that crazy stuff. So a lot of times you can go to those same schools where you know the fish are, and if you throw something finesse in there first, you'll get more bites, you won't spook that school. And by finesse, I don't mean a spinning rod, I don't mean finesse baits. Right here, this is a Shaky Head. It's one of my favorites for July fishing, and there's 2 ways you can rig it. So this is gonna be the way, finesse, bait caster, 15 pound test. This is a Divine Shaky Worm 7-inch. It's a big worm, and I'll put it on their Divine Shaky Head right here. This is a 3/8 ounce as well with a 6/0 hook in there. So really, this is not a finesse bait whatsoever, but it gets a lot of bites because it's just something way more subtle than a big deep crankbait or something like that. So this is what I like to throw on some of those offshore places. It's still a big meal, still will entice those fish, but you'll get a lot more bites because it's still something that smaller fish can eat as well, or they just haven't seen as much. You'll notice I got a plum apple color on here. I could go with a lot of those plum colors this time of year in that deeper water. Have no idea why they like that more, but sometimes they do. If I go with anything else, it's usually like a green pumpkin, a watermelon red, something like that if you have some clear water. So got the Divine Shaky Worms, plenty of them right here in different colors. But like I said, there's 2 ways to rig this up. You can get these smaller Divine Shaky Heads in like a quarter or a 5/16 ounce with only like a 4/0 hook in it. And you can use the 6.3 Divine Shaky Worm and throw this on a spinning rod with 10 pound test leader and 15 pound test braid. You can finesse fish some smaller fish. Your lake might not have fish that can eat this big worm. I fish a couple lakes around here where a big fish is 2 pounds. They might not be interested in this worm, and you're actually limiting the number of bites you're gonna get by going to that giant worm. So if you downsize, you can still throw that Shaky Head and drag it on those offshore spots. You'll catch a ton more fish than guys throwing a crankbait. It's the same premise, you just downsize that approach a little bit. So the Divine Shaky Worm in that 6.3 size, it's more of like a trick worm profile rather than like a Magnum trick worm profile. And it'll have that lighter jig head, smaller hook, get you more bites. So let's jump into the last one here. This is gonna be my favorite for this time of year. I throw this thing every year offshore and I catch a pile of fish on it. And that bait is just going to be a giant curly tail worm. This one right here is the new 6 cents Busa 9.6 inch ribbon tail, 10-inch worm, somewhere in that range. One of the other ones that I used to fish before, the ridge worm from 6 cents as well, and I'm sure you guys all know the old monster. That's one I've always fished as well. Anything in that range, that's the type of bait that we're talking about here, a big ribbon tail worm. And you'll notice again, we're fishing plum colors. That's the way to go this time of year. I love it, either plum or like a green pumpkin. Those are the 2 colors that I'm gonna throw. This one's like a green pumpkin candy type color. These 2 are plum colors. That's what I'm gonna be using with this setup right here. Again, there's 2 ways to fish this one too. So my number 1 way, 10-inch worm, you'll be surprised how small a fish you can catch on this thing. I've caught 12, 13-inch bass on this worm right here, just on a simple Texas rig. So 3/8 ounce weight, don't peg it, put a 5/0 hook in here and cast that thing out there and drag it on those offshore spots. Bait caster, 15 pound test. You're set. It's finesse fishing, but it's a lot of fun fishing that bigger bait like that. This will work in ponds, any place, offshore stuff, on bigger lakes. It works on the TVA lake. It really does not matter. You'll catch a ton of fish using this setup. The other way that I really like to rig this, if you have smaller fish, you're fishing a smaller pond, you're trying to get some more bites, I'll go down to like a 1/4 or a 5/16 ounce, a 4/0 hook, and then a 7-inch ribbon tail worm. Now, 6 cents doesn't make a 7-inch ribbon tail worm right now, so my favorite there is the Berkeley Power Worm, 7-inch. That's gonna be the one that I like to use. You'll catch a ton of fish on that. It is like the most old school technique ever. Back when I was a lot younger, that was the bait that I like to use a lot. I'd fish in ponds, I'd throw that thing out there on a bait caster and drag it around on the bottom in the summers, and I'd catch a ton of fish. This is just an upscaled version of it to catch bigger fish on some bigger lakes, but it'll work in ponds as well. But that is my favorite way to catch some fish in July. Offshore fishing is the way to do it. If you want to learn more about how to rig these baits up right here, this 6 cents bait, check this video out right here. If you use my code Quince on their website, you'll also save 10% off your order and you'll be helping out the channel a ton. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button down below and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of my fishing videos coming up. And thanks for watching.